Sunday School teacher, I'm glad that you've joined us for our time of study as we prepare for this coming Sunday. We're looking at December 21st. We're continuing in our series, Storm Shelter, Psalms of God's Embrace. We're looking at various Psalms and how those Psalms remind us and speak to us about God being our salvation, our protection, our source. This session is entitled The Shelter of Forgiveness. We're going to be looking in Psalm 32, and the point of this lesson, the thing that we really want to get across to our folks is that God's forgiveness brings restoration and joy. God's forgiveness brings restoration and joy. As we begin this, we need to be reminded that forgiveness is a gift that is difficult to give because of the high cost. One of the reasons why people do not forgive is because it is costly. The cost of forgiveness was high for God. It cost Him His Son. And so as you and I, in our relationship with God, we understand the cost that He paid to forgive us and to offer us forgiveness. The same is true in our life, in the relationships that we have with each other. As we offend, as we hurt, the forgiveness that we seek and the forgiveness that we offer is a high cost. Forgiveness is not easy, but the benefit, the result of the forgiveness is incredible. So let's look at these verses. Psalm 32, verses 1 and 2. There we'll start. It says, "Blessed is he whose transgressions are forgiven, whose sins are covered. Blessed is the man whose sin the Lord does not count against him, and in whose spirit is no deceit." He used the word blessed or happy or joyful. We've got to remember that joy is different from happiness. There are some folks that say, well, I'm seeking to be happy. Well, there are times in our life when we're not going to be happy. But we can have joy. Joy is what's on the inside. Joy allows you to see the end, to see the outcome of even that moment of hurt. Joy is what allows us to move forward. We may not be happy. We can be joyful even in the midst of sorrow, but we can be joyful. He says here in this verse that the beginning step to forgiveness is to stop deceiving ourselves. He says this in verse 2. He says, "In whose spirit there is no deceit." When we lie to ourselves, when we try to convince ourselves that person doesn't deserve forgiveness because of what they've done to us, or we can't be forgiven for what we've done. When we lie to ourselves, when we deceive ourselves that forgiveness is beyond our reach, we're deceiving ourselves. Also, when we say, well, there's nothing for me to be forgiven of. I'm okay. I don't need forgiveness. There is deception in our heart, and we will never have joy. We will never have that blessing as long as we're lying to ourselves and trying to deceive ourselves that we don't need forgiveness. We will know real joy when God forgives our sin. That's what he says here. We're going to know real joy when God forgives our sin. We're going to know real joy when He removes our sin. And we're going to have real joy when He doesn't hold our sin against us. So joy comes when we're forgiven of our sin, when the sin is removed, when it no longer controls our life. And then also when God doesn't hold that sin